Hi, I'm Luke Williams from AI Today, bringing you all the latest news and biggest industry stories from the world of AI. The AI talent landscape is rapidly evolving as companies move from experimentation to implementation. Finding and retaining specialized AI professionals remains one of the biggest challenges organizations face in 2025. Today, I'm joined by Chris Morrow, founder and MD of Digitalent, which is an executive search business specializing exclusively in AI and machine learning talent across the UK, USA, and Australia. With nearly 8 years helping companies build their AI teams, Chris brings valuable insights on the current state of AI hiring. Chris, thank you for joining us today. Could you start by giving us a brief overview of Digitalent, talk about your business processes, the clients that you work with, and the kind of positions that you recruit for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks very much, Luke. My name's Chris Morrow. I'm the founder and MD of Digitalent. We're a global specialist AI and machine learning recruitment agency. Headquarters and home is in the UK, but we also have a big presence in the US and Australian markets. We recruit for um, permanent roles, so full-time roles at all levels. We recruit for contract roles at all levels if companies are hiring contractors for a short period of time. We hire executive search and selection as well. So if companies are looking for leaders, AI and machine learning leaders for their team, we can help with that as well, which is a slightly more involved process. And we also have a service called Synergy, which is a video interview service where we take over the first stage of the interview process for our clients, and we then submit the candidate CV and video interview recording when we submit their details, and that's really aimed at saving clients and candidates as much time as possible during the recruitment process.
So, just briefly, Chris, what are some of the common misconceptions that companies have when they first start building their AI teams?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of misconceptions
Yeah.
when companies are building AI teams. One of the first things is that the sort of belief that one AI person can solve everything that a company wants to do from an AI perspective. It's more often than not a massive team effort, and it includes, the data aspect, it includes infrastructure, it includes, model deployment as well as business integration as well. So there's quite a few different parts of it, and I think that some companies maybe don't actually fully appreciate that when they set out on their journey to sort of build an AI team within their organization. There's also a massive understanding, I think, of what AI actually means. Some people really understand it. Some leaders just don't, and they haven't even used ChatGPT or Claude or any of those sort of tools. Some of them want like deep learning, in their organization. Others just really want smart automation, and they don't really know what the difference is. So there's a sort of education piece along with our job, especially at the moment where we're sort of really early stages with AI and how it's sort of embedding itself into the market. We get a lot of people sort of come to us and sort of with their hair on fire, sort of saying we need to do AI, and we need to sort of educate them as to what that actually means and what it looks like. There's also a massive underestimating of like the cost and the complexity that comes along with building an AI team, and especially around things like data quality and things like model drift, for example, and also the ethical implications of AI as well. That's something that a lot of people just really don't understand or consider when starting out in their journey. And then the final one I would probably mention is just this assumption where companies believe that sort of top talent will join their company without a strong AI mission or vision. They have the company mission and the company vision overall, but they haven't really got an AI strategy or an AI mission or vision sort of nailed down. And that's one of the first things that really top level talent asks as to what that is. And if companies don't have a good answer for that question, it can turn people off very, very quickly.
That's really interesting. It's something I wanted to pick up on and just maybe get to expand on, Chris. The AI talent market seems thin on the ground, and companies are all trying to hire the best people. What else can businesses do, especially businesses that are new to building AI teams? What can they do other than what you just mentioned to attract the very best talent in the market?
I think it depends on what type of company they are. So, for instance, if you're a startup, the thing that you can offer is normally different to what a much larger organisation can offer. Things like, autonomy and getting your hands dirty in different areas. That's really appealing to someone who's maybe come from a much larger organisation and who's been stuck in a silo without much autonomy in their current or previous roles. But I think definitely at the leadership level, you have to be able to demonstrate that you understand the sort of strategy, the roadmap, where the company wants to go and why it wants to go there as far as AI is concerned. And not be able to articulate to the candidates how much of an investment they're going to put into it. It's not that appealing when companies say, we're going to give it a go. We don't really have a strategy. We don't know how much we're going to spend. We don't know what the team's going to look like. But do you fancy joining us? There's a lot of candidates out there who would just be repelled by that. So I think that's part of it, as well as the leadership in the company being able to articulate why they believe in AI and what they're trying to move towards from an overall strategy and vision perspective is extremely important, because I think if one of those things is missing, if you have a leader who is a genuinely great leader but they don't understand AI, it can be off-putting to top AI talent as well. So I think it really just depends on which type of company you have at the moment, what you're trying to do with AI, and then how you articulate that vision to the market, because not that many companies have a strong employer brand as far as AI goes, especially in the UK. So it's about how you articulate that in sort of different ways and be able to sell on, what your sort of unique selling points, I suppose, are as a business. And that might be autonomy, it might be remuneration. It might be the actual projects that you're working on from an AI and machine learning perspective that are just really interesting and exciting, that get people sort of jumping out of bed in the morning. So it kind of depends on a few of those factors.
You have a background in computing science, Chris. So how has your technical knowledge influenced your approach to evaluating both AI candidates and non-AI candidates that are expected to have, as you put it, AI literacy compared to traditional tech roles?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the easiest way I would probably try and describe that is that you can spot the fluff a lot easier, when you have a sort of background in computing science and information systems like I do. And we were just talking before we pressed record, I just passed my AWS Certified AI Practitioner exam back in February, so only a few months ago. It helps you to ask about the why when you're speaking to clients rather than just the what, which is sometimes what happens in other sort of tech recruitment agencies, essentially, especially when speaking to clients and candidates. So AI is a lot of sort of smoke and mirrors in a lot of ways, in the sense that, you're sort of, my background gives me this sort of lens that I can use to separate real experience from a candidate perspective rather than just buzzwords on someone's CV. I can sort of drill down a lot deeper, which I think is really, really handy.
And just moving on, so let's think about particularly businesses that are new to doing AI, as you put it. They might not have that level of knowledge or expertise until they engage with you. Do you receive, or I should say, what kind of feedback do you receive from clients about hurdles, challenges when integrating these professionals into existing teams? Is it seamless, or can there be gaps in understanding interpersonally? How do they tend to get on with existing staff? What does it look like after the recruitment process is finished and these guys are on site doing their jobs?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a few of the sort of like usual suspects that pop up that I can talk about. So one of the things that I hear often from not just our clients, but other people wider in the market, prospective clients, if you like, in the sort of like the wider AI market is cultural integration. So AI folks sometimes have a bit, depending on where they've come from, they sometimes have a bit of a sort of more research mindset. If they've come from academia, type thing. Whereas traditional teams, especially from like a software development perspective, they are used to working and they expect quite quick delivery and turnarounds, especially if they're working on a sort of as part of an agile cross-functional development team. That can sometimes be a challenge from a cultural perspective, is to sort of embed those specialists into what is a very different way of working. So that's one thing. The other thing is sort of communication gaps. So what we see sometimes is when AI teams aren't aligned, or with the sort of product that's been built, or with the business, if they're sort of like they've not really been integrated properly, and the communication is sometimes lacking, that can be a major disaster waiting to happen as well. The other thing to mention is things like infrastructure. So, when you think about things like, the sort of the tooling or the data maturity, companies quite often underestimate the how much is needed to support AI work and how long that will last. People think it's like, oh, you just do it once and then that's it. No, it's actually an ongoing thing, which can obviously be quite expensive when you start digging into it. And also some clients sometimes feel a little bit intimidated, is probably the right word, by AI talent, because they're not sure how to kind of like lead or manage them. And that's because they don't necessarily understand what it is they do or how they do it. A lot of the time, like I said, we're so early in the AI journey that a lot of companies, especially at a leadership level, maybe don't understand exactly the ins and outs of it, or even from a foundation knowledge perspective. So that can be quite challenging when you lack that sort of depth of information. Is sometimes challenging in how to sort of lead and manage those individuals. Not all the time, but we do see that sometimes as well, where there's a sort of general lack of knowledge about what they actually do, which is probably best summed up as a bit of a intimidation of they think they're like sorcerers, or like they're doing something like absolutely wild that you just don't understand. So that can be a little bit intimidating for someone who's a leader of a business who potentially doesn't understand the ins and outs of AI and how it works.
That's really interesting, and good to get your insider knowledge on that. Obviously, you're UK based, Chris, but your business Digitalent's reach is across the UK, the USA, Australia, and presumably other locations as well. Have you noticed regional difference in AI talent from either a needs or an availability perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we started business as a sort of UK based recruitment agency, and 9 months later we expanded into Australia, and then from January 2021 we've been recruiting in the US market. We've got lots of clients across the US as well. So yeah, I mean the differences are quite stark. And you look at the US market is obviously much more mature than any of the other markets. It's the number one AI and machine learning market in the world. So you've got that sort of higher maturity level, a lot more deep tech type roles across the US market, especially in the sort of epicenter of everything that goes on from an AI perspective in the US, in Silicon Valley, and places like New York and sort of major cities like that. So there's also this strong venture funding, which the UK kind of lacks, which leads to very aggressive hiring as well. When you think of like VC backed scale ups and startups as well. So that's the sort of US part of it is what I would say, and obviously what goes along with that is that, like, the volume and the quality of the candidates from an AI and machine learning perspective in the US is always really high because of that maturity level being so high as well. In the UK, here we've got like really strong research roots, so you've got DeepMind, and you've got obviously, you know, really strong universities who have got strong links to, you know, AI research across the UK, but we're often slower to commercialize AI in the UK market, which it sort of hits the, you know, the talent market. There's a lot fewer in terms of the actual volume of the sort of candidates in the UK market. Obviously, even as a ratio depending on the population, obviously the population in the US is, you know, absolutely huge compared to, you know, the UK. But I think that the UK's got some catching up to do with regards to how to sort of commercialise AI, and also the funding and the, you know, the government support that goes into that as well. So that's what we normally find in the UK market. Australia is very much an emerging market, so it's a lot smaller. You've probably got like Sydney and Melbourne are probably the main places where AI is sort of like the AI market is taking a foothold, but it's still very, very early days, and they're obviously a closed market. They rely heavily on immigration, and they're more focused on things like applied AI and data science at the moment. So a much tighter talent pool in Australia, but also very highly skilled, and it's sort of gaining speed quite a lot, but it's still got a huge way to go to catch up to even the, you know, the UK, in that sense, in terms of the volume of the talent that's available, and also the companies who are actually doing fantastic work from an AI perspective. One thing that I think is really important across all three locations to mention is the remote work aspect. So that's sort of like smooth the differences somewhat in some regards, and we do see a lot of US clients what we call Brit-shoring, and which is hiring UK candidates because it's a hell of a lot cheaper to get their hands on people from the UK compared to the US market. But sometimes those sort of time zone logistics, depending on where that business is, you know, if they're on Pacific time, can make it quite challenging from a logistical perspective. And obviously they still need to think about things like compliance and all the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, across the three major locations that we deal with as a business, there are some really massively apparent differences when it comes to, you know, looking at the market as a whole.
Three very different types of markets in terms of the levels of maturity, it sounds like. This is my last question for you, Chris. Looking ahead to 2026 and beyond, what emerging AI roles or specializations should forward-thinking companies be preparing to hire for? And if you have any general advice, especially for businesses that are new to AI, what would that be from an expert's perspective?
Oh, it's a great question. I think some of the things that I would probably mention here are things like AI ops and ML engineering. So I think that those are going to be crucial in the future, mainly for the reasons of like getting models into production and also being able to monitor them successfully. A lot of companies don't have any ML ops set up at all, and you know that's quite immature. So that's going to be something that's definitely more and more of a requirement, I think. Prompt engineers is something that we see a lot of in the US market. You know, the sort of like full-time prompt engineer roles there, if you search for them, quite widely available across the US market. There are some roles in the UK at the moment, and there's a debate going on as to whether those roles are going to become obsolete as the large language models continue to, you know, evolve. I think that prompt engineering will always be a core part of it. So those roles might start to evolve into, you know, more of a sort of like an AI UX roles where we're talking about linguistics earlier on before we started hitting record, and that's something that's often sought for prompt engineering roles and things like that. So that's really, how do you design the interactions between a human and an AI model? It's a completely different set of skills compared to like traditional user experience, for example. And I think if you plunked a traditional UXer into designing an AI model, you'd have to reverse engineer everything that they understand about user experience to be able to do that, because of how the AI model works and the fact that it's not sort of deterministic in its nature. Another thing that I think is going to continue to be really, really big, and we're seeing it talked about a lot more often, and especially in the UK from a government level, is things like AI ethics and governance. So the US is taking this approach of, let's relax AI governance to essentially boost the innovation side of things, to get ahead in the AI race against, the sort of AI war against China. They've taken that stance. The UK hasn't really drawn a sort of line in the sand and sort of placed its stake in the ground as far as AI ethics and governance goes, but it's going to continue to be a hot topic. We've not really decided as a country whether we're going to sort of be more governance led and more ethics led, or we're going to sort of relax that side of things to sort of boost the innovation. There's that sort of tug of war going on. And I think that ethics, governance and compliance will have to become mainstream functions in most businesses who are serious about building AI teams going into 2026 and beyond. The other thing I would mention is open source contributors and model fine tuners will probably start to become more and more valuable to businesses, especially when you think about sort of open source LLMs like Llama and Mistral in France and things like that. So that's an interesting thing. I think even OpenAI have been talking about releasing their first sort of like open source, one of their first open source models as well. So I think that's an interesting conversation to think about in terms of the future of AI, is in terms of how that evolves, who the contributors are, and who fine tunes those types of models as well. So that's something that potentially we don't have sight of yet, and it's quite interesting. And then I think another thing to think about is roles like AI generalists, for example. So people who actually understand little bits of everything, bits of product, bits of data, bits of like deployment. We hear this term being bandied about a lot at the moment called vibe coding, things like that. Yeah. So it's understanding a little bit of everything. And so someone who's more of an AI generalist, those people will probably be the glue in fast moving teams, I think, in the future. So those are some of the things that if I had a crystal ball, I'd probably make some bets on, given my perspective.
Okay, invaluable advice there from a man that's truly at the coalface of the AI talent market. That's brilliant, that, Chris. Thank you. So interesting. That's all from thanks. That's all from me. I want to again thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing Digitalent grow as the demand for AI talent grows in the near future. So goodbye to our viewers, and please do feel free to join in the conversation on AI Today's LinkedIn and Reddit channels. Take care.